I have a series of shots here where the camera wrote two versions at one time. I'll switch in Adobe Bridge to my workspace, and often photographers who don't have time to do deep corrections will set their camera to write a JPEG, the post-processed version, at the same time that they create an unprocessed or raw version. This raw version can be corrected many times. There was a shot of Ansel Adams that was, I believe, called The Moon, and he kept taking it back into the lab and redeveloping it, and over his career you could see about 10 different versions of it, depending on what he wanted to get out of the photo. Well, if you have an already baked or permanently created JPEG, you get far less movement over the color, over the detail, over the entire shot. So what I'm going to do with these shots from the Nikon D40X in our Beautiful Images folder is I'm going to take this dress, which the camera captured as a light red, and I could zoom in to see a little bit more detail, with some white patterns running through it, and I want to make this more of how I saw it in that market on that day. So I will double-click on the camera raw shot, and I will maximize. And here, I'll just do some very quick corrections. I can adjust the exposure until I'm more happy with the overall brightness. I can boost the contrast a bit, experiment with the highlights to make sure I'm capturing very subtle highlight detail. And I'm just moving these dials in a pattern that I think works for this particular shot. There's no one magic recipe for every image out of the box. So you can feel free to play with this, not being there at the market and knowing exactly what the dress looked like. But with a few of those moves, if I turn preview off and on, untouched pure data as the camera saw it, corrected boosted color. And I think I'll make the blacks a bit darker. I really want more of a burgundy or dark red, maroon red for this dress. And I could add a little bit of clarity. It often helps to zoom to 100%. You could use Command plus or Control plus to do that. And you could use your hand tool to move around. So there I'm still seeing good detail on the dress. And here is my before and after. Much better. I like that contrast I've given it. Now I hit Command minus or Control minus to zoom back down because I do want to focus on the entire dress. In Camera Raw, as I slide to the right, you'll see HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance. And in my head, I often say, luminance is lightness. It's a good way to remember it's the overall dark or light in an image. Hue simply means color, and this is selective color, getting exactly what you want out of this dress without impacting too much of the rest of the photo. I'm going to hit Command 0 or Control 0 to see the rest of the photo. There's mostly whites and browns, but if I were to make a move in the basic dials towards magenta, the entire image gets shifted a little bit pink, destroying the overall color of the image. So I'll put that back. You can use your own judgment here. I have numbers that I shoot for, keeping it fairly well balanced. It is maybe a hair too blue. Before and after. There we go. Now I'll come back to HSL, and with the red, I can move towards magenta, so I get more of a pink color out of the dress, or towards orange, where you get a deeper version of that red. And when I use preview now, here's before, here's after, just on this shot. I haven't moved that a lot. Let's go farther. Before, after. There I'm actually getting an orangey tone instead of red. So I'll pull that back, but I wanted to show you the difference. Now the colors in this dress, because of the sun shining through it, may be considered orange. So I could take orange in this direction, but see the windows? they've really picked up a color change because that highlight, the light reflecting there, is orange. So I'll dial it back the other direction and it actually makes kind of a greenish yellow. I'm getting a little bit of the dress, but I don't want to affect those windows. So I double-clicked on the dial to set it back. And you can experiment with the yellows, watching the windowsills in the background. And I always check with before and after to see if I like where I'm going. And I move it pretty far, one direction or the other, to see how it impacts my color. Now the last move for hue I'm going to make is on the magenta, because there are a lot of pink tones here. You can go completely towards pink in the darker portions of the dress, or towards a more true red, which is my goal. There we go. Now the dress isn't so pink, it's more of an orangey red. I'm going to jump straight to luminance because I know this will make me happy. In luminance, I simply want all the reds darker. So I could dial that down. Now I'm getting more of that rich burgundy red that I actually saw on that day. I experiment with the oranges. Again, it affects the background, but it does affect the dress as well. And I'm pretty happy with it overall on everything. If I don't want it moving the background so much, I could move that up. And really, it's only picking up in the reflection. Yellows and magenta will also exist in the red, so you can move them in both directions to see if you like what they're doing. There we go. Darker in this area as well. So now, before, after, huge movement. You didn't realize how pink it was until I went for more of that orangey burgundy tone. Now, saturation, I caution. Saturation can look very artificial. So if you boost that red, it really gets kind of harsh. But to make the color look more realistic, sometimes I actually pull out a little saturation. Because I've moved the color so far to get exactly the tone and shade I want out of this, that pulling the saturation down can make it look more realistic. So let's compare our final versions. I'll hit Done. I'll come back to Bridge. And here is the camera-baked JPEG. Here is my custom corrected RAW. I'll double-click on folders to get it out of the way and give this more room so I could see a side-by-side better. I'm actually moving in close to the monitor as well. So I click Before, pink, not the tone that I saw, not what I want, but okay. Perfected by me for the exact tone, color, luminance, brightness that I wanted. And it's forever editable. So take some time in the Camera Raw dialog to experiment with individual shots and HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance to pull the exact tone and color you'd like out of an image.